Hi, I'm Toshi Osaka. I'm a Japanese indie filmmaker who makes samurai movies. Okay, thank you for coming this for the Musashi Gorin no show under my understanding series. This time I'm going to talk about the first scroll, Chi, the Earth. This video is going to talk about the introduction. The introduction includes his own history of his sword style. So I just put the I put the Japanese in there and I put the translation in there. So please listen to it.
Gorin no Show. The Scroll of Earth. Chapter 1. Prologue. Self-Introduction. I entitled my combat sword style, Niten Ryu. And for many years of my training, this is the first time for me to write down about my theory of sword fighting here. In the early October of 1643, I climb up Mount Iwado, Higo, Kyushu Island, and pray to Ten, sky or heaven, and pray to Kannon, goddess of mercy, then face to the Buddha. I was born as the son of samurai in the domain of Harima, current Hyogo Prefecture. My name is Shinmen Musashinokami Fujiwara Motonobu. Now I'm 60 years old. Since I was young, I've been training my martial arts. My first real fighting was when I was 13 years old. The samurai name of my first sword fighting was Harima Kihyo of Shintoryu. Then, when I was 16 years old, I also defeated Akiyama of Tajima Domain, who was known as the strong fighter. I went to Kyoto when I was 21 years old and I challenged the group of one of the best martial artists. I fought with them for many times and I won all of the real fightings. After that I traveled around the country, and I challenged many different sword styles and sword masters for over 60 times, and I never lost. My challenge of real fighting started when I was 13 years old and finished when I was 28 or 29. When I was over 30s, I looked back my samurai challenging life. I realized that I won all the battle not because I mastered my combat skills, but I just stayed on the reality of the nature, or sure things of the real fighting. Or other sword styles must has dysfunctions of their fighting style. After the life of challenging my real fighting life, I kept training morning and evening. Finally I satisfied with my way of combat style. I was already about 50 years old. Since then, I realized that there is no more subjects to pursue in my martial arts life. I decided to retire my sword. I learned everything by myself, including my arts, by winning the real fightings. I never had my sensei. In my writing of my scrolls, I will not use any religious and spiritual explanations, or theories based on the classic strategical books. To understand Niten Ryu, I swear to the Ten, sky or heaven, and Kannon, the goddess of mercy, I will write down all the facts and realities of the real fighting. In the middle of the night with the moon enlightening me, I start writing my scrolls. 10th of October.
Okay, let me break it down about each lines of his Gorin no show. The first, which is the most famous and line in Gorin no show. It said, I entitle my combat style Niten Ichiryu. When I say combat style instead of sword style, because in this period, there was no kenjutsu, the word of kenjutsu. It was only heiho. It's not hyoho though. If sometimes some people say it's hyoho, it's wrong. At the time, the correct way of reading it is heiho. So the heiho means combat skill. So it's comprehensive combat skill, including whole, not just a whole katana fighting, spear fighting, naginata fighting, bow and arrow, and jujutsu, and whatever you can see in Japanese combat weapons and other combat skill. That's all combined, and they say heiho. So he said his heiho as Niten Ichiryu. That's very important to understand. The kenjutsu, the word of kenjutsu became very common in Meiji period when also the people start naming his scroll as Gorin no show. It's so many, kenjutsu is very, very a new idea about it. In the Musashi period, it was heiho, it's a combat skill. But later, kind of get confused. I also use kenjutsu style, his Gorin and Niten Ichiryu as a kenjutsu style, a sword style. So it's more easier for me to say that. Let's talk about the name of Niten Ichi. Niten means the two objects in the sky. What is the two big major objects in the sky? of course, it's the sun and the moon. So Niten means sun and the moon, and Ichi is the Ichi literally just means one, so or just unify. So Niten Ichi means combine sun and the moon together in your body. So also, what the sun and the moon represent, it's yin and yang. So Niten Ichi means pretty much means yin and yang style. So he put the yin and yang, the philosophy of the space, and entitled that to his own soul style. So which is very important to understand why he put the Niten, sun and sky, or in sun and the moon, or yin and yang philosophy in his own soul style. And why I can be so sure, of course everybody can be sure, because what's the two objects in the sky is, moon and sun, but also in some other records, sometimes he called his own style Enmeiryu. Enmeiryu, the kanji of en represent a circle. Mei is in Japanese kanji, it means bright or enlightened. However, the Mei is a combination kanji of sun and the moon. So you can see that when Musashi was strongly attached with the sun and the moon. So when you see the symbol of Niten Ichiryu, the circle crossover like this, I think that's also represent yin and yang. Also, in Gorin no show, Musashi also used Nito Ichiryu. Nito pretty much means the two hands, two swords. Still he put Ichi. So it's very important that even the two hands, but your body as your one, how you deal with the katana, that's how Niten his sword style. And when he say about the Nito Ichiryu, he only talks about the sword fighting. So probably he was kind of separated, talking about when he talked about only Kenjutsu. Maybe he used the Nito Ichiryu instead of Niten Ichiryu. However, it's not the different. Nito Ichiryu is a part of Niten Ichiryu. And when you read the Gorin no show, even Musashi has not significant difference between those two terms. So maybe he was just used one time, but it doesn't really mean anything to me. Maybe you say you might have a different idea, but for me, I don't think there's a difference between those two terms. Of course, when you how you use the Niten Ichiryu and the sun and the moon with your body, of course the sun is just stronger and larger, so you use your right hand on the large katana, and your left hand use the wakizashi or small katana. That's how yin and yang start. That's the basic idea of the Niten Ichiryu. That's my understanding. Okay, let's move on to the next one. He said, and for many years of my training, this is the first time for me to write down about his theory of sword fighting here, or combat skill here. That's the next line. So Gorin no show is the written records for Musashi. Some people say there are the process of Gorin no show, 1, 2, 3, and Gorin no show. No, that's not right, because in Gorin no show he said that this is the first time, so he never wrote anything about it. So about his own combat skill, and this is also important. Why he in the age of his 60s he start writing about his own combat skill. I already talked about the details before in the previous video, so please watch it before you read this. Watch this, but let me briefly say. When he was 60s, the time it was in 1643, so which is the time of the peace. The Sengoku period, the war period is over about more than 40 years ago. There was no war, so But Musashi was grown up and went through the very, very hard the battle period. There was the battle, combats, fighting everywhere in Japan. Samurai was fighting, daimyo was fighting. That was the time Musashi was grown up. So he went through many kind of experience and going through the real fighting, real killing, in his life. However, when he started writing about this, the Gorin show, it was already been peaceful almost for a half century. So, like I said in the previous video, he was more worried about or disappointed about what the modern and at the time what the martial arts or Kenjutsu dojo, when was about, because many dojos or many senseis or soul styles talk about lots of soul theory or logics, and they just been practice their forms and kata. But when he saw that, he was saying, "Oh, that's not just a theory. That's just a theory." He was kind of disappointed about, they don't know anything about the real fighting is, real soul fighting is, because they don't experience those things. So when he decided to write this the Gorin show, I'm sure he wanted to share his own experience about what the real soul fighting is to the generation who doesn't know anything about the real fighting, by his own experiences. So he wanted to talk, maybe you learn your theory in your dojo, but this is the real, and this is the real skill, or this is the real knowledge you need to know to survive in the real battlefield. This is why he started writing the first time in his life in '60. He started writing the Gorin show, and that's what I understand, my understanding of it. Okay, let's go to the next line. He said, in the early October of 1643, I climb up the Mount Iwado, Hyogo, Kyushu Island, and pray to the Ten, the sky or heaven, and pray to Kannon, the goddess of mercy, and his mercy. Then face to the Buddha. So it said Musashi climbed up the Mount Iwado and he showed his dedication to write the Gorin show. The legend said there's a legend that at the Ungenji temple in Kumamoto Prefecture, I went there one time, there's a big cave, the Kannon cave, and the legend said Musashi was in the cave and he wrote the Gorin show. However, in this line, there's not he never mentioned about the temple or grave. He just said, he climbed up the Mount Iwado and decided to show his dedication to write it. So, generally speaking, I don't think he just stayed in the grave and write the Gorin show. It's very nice fantasy for the story, but honestly, I'm sure he just went back to his home and he wrote Gorin show at his house with his assistant. With his assistant. So that's this line said. Maybe he put the Buddha statue in front of his room, but I don't think he wrote his Gorin show at the grave. However, if you are interested in, like I did, you can visit there. It's called Undan Zenji Temple, and there's a grave, and there's a Musashi museums along with the temple. So you might be interested into traveling around, the related spot, of Musashi there. Okay, the next line. I was born as the son of samurai in domain of the Harima, current Hyogo Prefecture. My name is Shinmen Musashinokami Fujiwara Motonobu. I am 60 years old. So now this is the time you listen Musashi, the name of Musashi. And it's said he was born in Harima, which is the west side of the current Hyogo Prefecture. And it's also there's a village called Miyamoto, which is where his name Miyamoto, Musashi's Miyamoto comes from. The village of Miyamoto is located. It's actually in Okayama Prefecture. At the time, it was belonged to Mimasaka, but the Miyamoto was very close to, almost located on the border of Harima and Mimasaka. So it could be, at the time the border of the domain changed many times. So maybe when he wrote this letter, it was in the part of Harima, or maybe he was born in Harima near. Maybe his mother's family was located there, or his father was located there at the time. But for sure he grown up at Miyamoto's village because his father, his stepfather, Shinmen, was the castle of that land, castle lord of that land. So maybe that's why he was born in Harima, but he used Miyamoto. So he kind of showed the respect for the both of the land. So. Oh, by the way, I went to the Miyamoto village too. It's very fun. In fact, there was a castle that was belonged to his father, Shinmen Muni, and there are many Musashi related spots, including his grave. I mean, nobody knows it's true or not, but it's still, it's real. I'm sure Musashi was there when he was kid, so it's also nice to travel around the Musashi spot there too. Let's after that he talks about his name. He said Shinmen Musashinokami Fujiwara Motonobu. That's his official name for when he talks about his art or his martial arts, his soul style. Shinmen is his family name, his father's name, and he was succeeded the Shinmen name from when his stepfather adopted Musashi as son. So that's his family name. And then Musashinokami. Musashinokami is official job's name. Pretty much Musashinokami means it's a governor. So the Musashi is actually the name of the domain and the country, current Tokyo and Saitama. So the Musashinokami is the governor of Tokyo and Saitama Prefecture and domain. However, it's kind of common things about samurai for the samurai at the time. Usually the governor was officially appointed by the emperor. However, many people just put the official job's name for their samurai names. Many people, like Nobunaga, he would say Kazusasuke, or like famous the 47 Ronins Kira Kozuke no Suke, and that's Kozuke is the current land of I think it's Tochigi Prefecture. So it's very common that many samurai put the official job's name after their name. So I'm sure Shinmen was not really appointed by the emperor, to be the governor of the Musashi, but that was kind of official name for Shinmen family. And Fujiwara is the family line name. So like Genji or Minamoto, like at this time many people also use the famous family lineage name. Like Ieyasu used Ieyasu used Fujiwara, and he changed his name to Genji to become to be a part of the Minamoto no Yoritomo family lineage. And Fujiwara is another famous lineage. Oh, by the way, I am the Fujiwara, the family line too. Why he he used the Fujiwara line name because the Shinmen family was belonged to the Fujiwara line. So that's why he also put the Fujiwara on his official name. Then Motonobu is the actual his name. So usually, let's say without any nickname or anything, Miyamoto Musashi's the actual name has to be Shinmen Motonobu. However, there is no explanation about how we read the moto, kanji moto. It could be Kuronobu, or could be any Harunobu, or could be anything. But moto is kind of the popular reading it. So for this time, especially if it's not important how it's pronounced for Japanese people because we can read kanji, but for the English people, they can read kanji. So for my theory, I just say it's Motonobu. So Shinmen Musashinokami Miyamoto no Fujiwara no Motonobu. That's his official name. Shinmen is his family name, and Musashinokami his job's name, and Fujiwara is the family line name, and Motonobu is his name. Then where the Miyamoto comes from? Remember, he was grown up with Miyamoto village, and he used Miyamoto as his family name for his civilian use. His adopted son Iori said, when Musashi adopted his first, I'm not sure he was first. His the boy called what was his called name? Mikinosuke. When he adopted Mikinosuke, he changed his family name from Shinmen to Miyamoto. So after that, he used his family, more like a civilian use family name, or you could say nickname, Miyamoto. And like I said, it's very common for this period. The samurai use their family name from where they came from. So Musashi came from Miyamoto, so he was just saying Miyamoto as his family name. So, and then it was his nickname. And then it became his official civilian name. So let's say maybe Musashi was saying, I'm Musashinokami from Miyamoto village. So I am Miyamoto, Musashi from Miyamoto, and that became his name. And which is very common at the time, so it's not very special about it. Most of the samurai, either they pick up the name given by the emperor, or they use their name from their own land. That's why Japanese people, we have the largest number of our family names, because many people they use their name, family name from their own homeland. So, like my last name Asaka. There's a land of Asaka in Fukushima Prefecture. Maybe that's my family name comes from there. So it's very common. So Shinmen Musashinokami Fujiwara no Motonobu, that's his official name. That's why he put it on his official scroll of Gorin show. But he was common in his daily life. He was using Miyamoto Musashi for his life. Also, he strongly mentioned that he wrote this when he was 60, not 60s. So when he was 60 years old. That's very important because he didn't say 60s. So just please understand that it's very important. Not that important, but it's important to know that the actual age of Musashi at the time. Okay, next. Since I was young, I have been training my martial arts. My first real fighting was when I was 13 years old. It said his first fighting. It said he was training martial arts since he was very kid. So maybe his father Shinmen Muni. Muni also means there's no other which means nobody is better than him. That's the that's the meaning of the Muni. So I'm sure he got very hard training from his father, that's for sure. Then his first match, his first real fighting happens when he was 13 years old. But remember, Japanese age counting is not start from 0, start from 1. So it was 12 years old. So maybe when you hear 12 years old, it's very young. However, in Japanese custom in summer period, 13 years is the time to be adult. So when he wrote, when he had the fighting when he was kid. He wrote this, especially exactly age of 13. So he wrote this as soon as he became adult. He had the first match, first fighting. And I'm sure when he said sword fighting or real fighting, it means winning by killing. So it is very important for him to experience the real fighting. Next one is the samurai name of my first sword fighting was Akiyama Kihyoe of Shinto-ryu. So nobody knows who is Akiyama Kihyoe. He only became famous because Musashi wrote it. But for sure, which is very important, battle for him. He still remembers when he was 60. He still remembers about the first match when he was 13 years old, which is about 47 years ago. But see, he still remembers. So the first fighting was so impressive, and it was very important for his life. So that was the beginning of his surviving from the real fighting. That's why he put his first enemy's name there. I'm sure also he was very tall guy. So even though he was 13 years old, his body was very big because the average height at the time is around 160s, and I think Musashi's height was about 180 or even more. So he was very high. So some people, even like kids today, even they're like 12 years old, like a first grade in junior high, they already reached the height of the 180s. So 180 centimeters. So I'm sure when he was 13 years old, he was very, very strong, and his body was very good at the time already. Maybe not 80 centimeters, maybe even around 70 centimeters. It's still taller than the average. So excuse me. Next. Before that, and Harima used the Shinto-ryu, which is the one of the famous sword style today, established by the Tsukahara Bokuden, like I said before. So I'm sure he's not just a Bavarian kind of strong person. He was officially trained the Shinto-ryu, or he said he trained the Shinto-ryu. Nobody knows, and everybody could lie at the time. So, but he just mentioned that he was a very strong samurai using the Shinto-ryu sword style. Okay, next. Then, when I was 16 years old, I also defeated Akiyama of Tajima domain, who known as the strongest, as a strong fighter. So, next one is when he was 16 years old. And it's very important. This is not the real fighting match for him. He just mentioned the second time, but that doesn't mean it's the second time for him for the real fighting. That's very important to understand. I don't misunderstand that. His name was Akiyama of Tajima. Tajima land is the next land of Harima. So, and it's why he mentioned about the Tajima land. It's Mimasaka where the village of Miyamoto was belonged to, and Tajima is the land of where he was born, and also he stayed, I think. And also Tajima is on north side, so it's like Mimasaka here, Harima here, and Tajima here. And Shinmen family was belonged to Akiyama family. Then the Miyamoto village and the Takayama castle, which is the Shinmen family's castle, was belonged to the Akiyama family. So I'm sure his father and Musashi went to the Takeda castle, which is located in Hyogo Prefecture, Tajima land, and maybe he was served there for their law. Maybe that's when the first match was happened with Akiyama. So in Gorin show never said where and how and when and where he fought. So it could be around Takeda Castle when he was working there. Nobody knows about it. Then these are only two names that actually, and Harima and Akiyama is only two names that actually Musashi mentioned in Gorin no show. And he also said Akiyama was very, very strong. So I think it was very, very close match for him. He could lost, or maybe he was just like this to win. That's why it was very important for him, because he experienced a lot of the hard situation by that fighting. Of course, the Harima is the first fight, so he remembers that. So he only put those two names. I don't know. I don't know what he learned from Akiyama's fighting, but maybe his philosophy or theory of sword fighting and surviving from the combat came from this match. That's why maybe he put his name on Gorin no show. Like the famous, when you talk about the story of Miyamoto Musashi, you always talk about the Ganryu Sasaki Kojiro, the fighting match of Ganryu Island, or like a Yoshioka family, the fighting with the Yoshioka family, or like a Hosoin Spears, or any other Kusaigama. That's all the story, fiction made by later. So they are not that important on the Gorin no show, and because Gorin no show is based on the fact, based on the reality, based on his experience. So those are that actually not exist. Those stories not really exist, at least on the Gorin no show. Okay, next. I went to Kyoto when I was 21 years old, and I challenged the group of one of the best martial arts. I fought with them many times. I fought with them for many times, and I won all of the real fightings. So this line became the famous story of the fighting with the Yoshioka dojo or Yoshioka families. Yes, Musashi mentioned that he fought with a group or dojo, very strong sword fighters group, and he fought with them many times. And he mentioned he won all the battle, all the sword fighting. However, all the Yoshioka family story that became very famous was all fiction, made by his adopted Miyamoto Iori for his propaganda to announce that how Musashi was strong. And he wrote that story of Yoshioka family on his Ogura Stone monument. Maybe the fact is true. I mean, what he said was true, or maybe he really fought with Yoshioka family, because I'm sure Yoshioka family or Yoshioka dojo was very famous in Kyoto at that time, and the fact that he fought with them. However, for the Gorin no show, for the Musashi, the name of the family or name of the dojo was not important. That's why he didn't put the name on it. However, when Iori tried to, commercialize and, inform to the people that how Musashi was strong, he just used the name, a real name there, and he made up a story. Maybe based on the real story that he heard from Musashi when he was with him. So that story could be true, or that story could be fiction. Nobody knows. Maybe I'm sure Musashi told a couple of the story when he was in Kyoto that he fought with Yoshioka family, and he talked about how he fought it. And maybe Iori remembers that he put it on in the stone monument. So that's it's like a fiction based on the fact. But more important things is it was not that important for the Musashi, because that's why he didn't put it on the Gorin show. Okay, next line. After that, I traveled around the country and I challenged many different sword style and sword masters for over 60 times, and I never lost. My challenge of real fighting started when I was 13 years old and finished when I was 28 to 29. So Musashi's fighting career start from 13 years old and finished at 20. When he was 28 or 29. It's just same. He just doesn't remember when he was. The last battle was when he was 28 or 29. So he just wrote it honestly, 28 to 29. So it is very important. This is not his entire the 60 times is not his entire the real sword fightings in his entire life. 60 times when he was 13 years old to 28 to 29 years old. After that, he never mentioned that he had a real fighting or not. So many people kind of confuse that Musashi in his life he fought 60 times. That's wrong. He fought 60 times when he was 13 years old to 29 years old. That's the period he fought 60 times. And like famous the battle of Ganryujima, supposed to be the last battle of Musashi's life, it's not also written on the Gorin show, so which is not very important for him. However, Iori wrote it on his Ogura Stone monument as well. So maybe it was very impressive battlefield. And let me just go a little bit off to the Gorin show, but talk about the Ganryujima fight. The Sasaki Kojiro, the Ganryu Sasaki Kojiro, he came from the north land of the Fukushima Prefecture, where the long sword fighting style is kind of flourished. There's the famous samurai use the long sword, and Kojiro's sword was about 1 meter long, which is very very long sword. My sword is the standard size, which is about 74 meters, so which is even 30 centimeters longer than the long. So it's very long sword. That's Kojiro used. Musashi used his bokken, or some exaggerated story, used the wood stakes for his bow. It could be true, but anyway, he used the bokken or bokto to fight against Kojiro. And many people think because Musashi is very strong with the muscle, so that's why how he won the battle with Kojiro. For my understanding, as a solo the martial artist with the Iai and Kenjutsu, it's wrong. It's actually, you know what? It's one by one fighting situation, not the battlefield. One by one fighting situation. Bokken is actually stronger than the real sword, because you cannot cut the bokken with your katana, with real blade. You can't. It's impossible to cut it. So bokken is strong enough to block the sword, and also you can't kill by cutting or stabbing, but you can break the bone or you can break the body by strong and hitting with bokken. What's the biggest merit of the bokken is you can swing much faster than the real blade. Remember, Kojiro was using a very, very long sword, which is very, very hard to swing fast. So because of the distance, because of the length that Kojiro get, he also lost the speed of the swing. And Bokken is strong enough to block and break Kojiro's body, but quick enough to very quick to swing. So when you see the fighting, it's only applied on one by one situation. If one person has the real katana and you have a bokken, you have a much better merit. You have a good advantage with the bokken. So bokken has more advantage than the real sword. So for when he had a match with Kojiro, the reason he used the wooden stick is not it was a psychological strategy to upset Kojiro. No, in fact he was very realistic that bokken is better weapon to defeat against the Kojiro. That's why he used bokken instead of real katana. Not because he was making fool of Kojiro, not because he had a strong power, but he was very realistic about using bokken because it's better fight. So that's very important to understand, and you will understand why I said that, when you read all the Gorin no show later, because he's always talk about what the best, pick up the best weapon, pick up the best position, pick up the best location, time, situation, pick up everything the best. That's how Musashi said in the Gorin no show. So he picked up the bokken because that was the best against the Kojiro. And that's my theory, but I think that's kind of true, I believe. Okay, the next line. When I was over 30s, I looked back my samurai challenging life. I realized that I won all the battle not because I mastered my combat skills, but I just stayed on the reality of the nature, or sure things of the real fighting, or other sword styles must have dysfunction of their fighting style. So because of this line, many people think Musashi was very, very like high self-esteem, that I won all the battle because I was stronger and the other one was weaker. But that's not what he said here. It's very important to understand this line. This is very important to talk about the Musashi. He said, he won all the battle because stayed on the reality, reality of the nature. So, and this is the base on all the fact. He said he won because he stayed the reality of the nature that's based on all the physics, the law of the physics, and the psychological the strategy for the combat, or and understanding the human body structure, and and talking about the geological advantage, and he was strongly saying he won all the battle, but he also said not because he was strong or he was a great swordmaster. He was saying because I was always stayed in the picking up the best of all those the facts of the nature, physics, psychology, or like a human body structure, and the geological advantage. He was saying he won because he understands those and he always pick up the best. That's why he won, not because he was strong, but he won because he stayed there. He was saying that, and he also mentioned that, or the other samurai didn't really understand those, reality of the physics. So he was saying all those sword fighters, maybe they didn't really understand well, or if they understand less than the Musashi's theory of real fighting or reality of the nature. That's what, so the samurai lost. They just didn't have enough in the knowledge or understanding about the nature. That's how he said here. So he was not saying he was strong or his soul style was best, that's why he won, and the other was weak because their soul style is not incomplete or dysfunction. No, he was not saying that. He always said, he said in this line, he stayed the fact, and the other ones didn't stay on the fact. That's why they lost, and that's why he win. That's the things he said in this line. That's why this is very important, especially to understand this Gorin no show. It's very important what is the reality of the nature. It's like Musashi was talking about this because the law of the physics never change. It's applied to everybody, everything in any situation for the fighting, not just fighting but everything. And also the psychological strategy, that's also applied to everything. So then the human body structure, understanding human body structure, that's also, it's very important. And pick up the geological advantage, that's also important. And those things never change. Nobody, I would say nobody has 3 arms. Nobody has like 3 eyes. Nobody has very long legs. Everybody, all body the structure is the same. The way of the people thinking is the same. The law of the physics is the same. Geological advantage, for example, he said in later, you put the sun behind you so you can use the light of the sun. That doesn't things never change. It's applied to Japan or applied to any other country. It's the same. It's the same logic. So he was saying that those facts, that doesn't change and apply to everybody, and he said he just used them because he understands them, and he was saying people who lost didn't really understand well, or at least they didn't understand well, more than what Musashi understands. So that's the things he wanted to say here. Okay, next. After the life of the challenge of my real fighting life, I kept training morning and evening. Finally, I satisfied with my way of combat style. I was already about 50 years old. So, after he retired real sword fighting, it still took him about 20 years to realize that he completed all the training of his soul style. He said morning and evening, but I think it pretty much means he trained every day, and it still took another 20 years. And his adopted son Iori was also he was adopted in this time. So when he said, after he retired about the real fighting, but he's still training, but he's still trained. It means he had enough experience to figure out what's another fact or reality of the nature to research that. And he spent another 20 years keep researching about what the best of the sword fighting or combat, so you can apply everything to his sword fighting, to survive from the real fighting. So after 20 years of training every day with his students, when he was 50s, he realized that there's no more reality, there's no more facts that apply to the real fighting, real battlefield. That's what I said. That's what he said here. Okay, next line. Since then, I realized that there's no more subject to pursue my martial arts life. I decided to retire my sword. I learned everything by myself, including my art, by winning the real fightings. So, I never had my sensei. Many people think from this line, and because Musashi was so, Musashi was so boring, or just he thought himself too much, having the high standard self-estimate, or he doesn't need any sensei, or he never went to the school to learn any sword style. I think when Musashi said about this, it's not like because he was good, he didn't need any sensei. No, he would learn everything from his experience. That's why he said there is no sensei for him. The attitude of him is he always thought what's the best in real fight situation, nearby battlefield. So like I said before, you always think about what is the best situation or best strategy, what is the best weapon, but what is the best, locationing, think about the geological advantage or, the psychological, warfare. He always think about what is the best, and the answer was he always got the answer from the battlefield because he survived. So every time he challenged, his attitude was always thinking about the situation and logic. What's the reality of the nature? So that attitude also applied his art. So he always when he drew something, he didn't really went to the school. He just always tried, what is the best for the art, what is the best way to drawing or painting. So that attitude always give him some answer. That's why he said he didn't have a sensei, he didn't have any instructors, because the situation, the way he solved this problem was the answer, was the sensei, was the answer of his question. So the situation was the sensei, and he for him, so he always think about it. And with that attitude, he never nearly need the sensei. That's what he said here. It's not he was good, so he didn't need a sensei. He was saying, all the answer he wants, he always could get it from situation and solving the problem. So that's why he said he doesn't need any sensei. He didn't need any sensei. And after that, and when he was 50s, he realized that there's no more fact for him, for his combat skill. That's why, he said he retired of the sword because he thought there's no more truth, there's no more logic or theory or reality of the nature to survive his battle, survive from the real fighting battle. Next line. In my writing of this scroll, I will not use any religious or spiritual explanations or theories based on the classic strategy books. I said in the previous video, when Musashi decided to write this scroll, it was not for his students. It was to all people who who attend any sword styles. And he strongly, this is the first line, this is the first epilogue, the prologue, introduction of his the combat scrolls, and he wanted to say that he will not use any religious or the historical wars. Many people, even today, people use those terms to make their world more powerful, or because the god said, or because the most famous priest said, or monk said about this, that's why this is true, or because this strategy is written in the famous the historic battle in the books like Sun Tzu. That's why this strategy is true. He avoided that. He avoided to use that. Why? Because he wanted to tell only about the fact, the reality that he went through, he experienced going through the real battlefield. So he is saying this is not the philosophy. He's saying in the scroll that he's going to write only about the fact from his experience. That's why he mentioned that strongly. So this is I think he is making some irony about the other scrolls or books or other those soul style. Sometimes they use all the religious wars, like people really likes to use them. But Musashi think, all you need to learn is coming from the experience, a fact. And all those facts is coming from his experience. That's why he wanted to make sure that people understand this is not religious war, this is not a history wars, it's his word. That's why he strongly mentioned that here. Okay, the last line. To understand Niten Ichiryu, I swear to the Ten, the sky of heaven, and Kannon, the goddess of mercy, I will write down all the facts and reality of the real fighting. In the middle of the night, with the moon enlightening me, I started writing my scrolls. 10th of October. This is the last line for his introduction. This is he was just swearing to his God, to God about how he will honestly write this scroll. This is kind of because he is also an artist. He kind of mentioned many things in this line. First of all, he swear to the sun. In Japanese this is Japanese kind of philosophy. In Japan, people think the sun is always watching us. So which means the sun always be the witness, of your act or your move. So, and you can't lie to the sun because sun is always watching. People can lie to anybody else, but you cannot lie to the sun. So you are always saying, even though nobody prove you are guilty or innocent, but the sun is always the witness that it knows about the truth. Of course, also the sun is the creator of Japanese people and Japan, the Amaterasu or Mikami. So Japan, the sun is the highest god in Japanese religion. That's why he swear to the sun that he will write the truth because sun is always watching it. So that's kind of one of the philosophy here in Japan. And also, and the Kannon, there are many gods in the Buddhism, but he picked up the Kannon because Kannon is the god of mercy. So, which means sometimes you make a guilty, you make a sin, but there's mercy, to kind of save your life. However, for even though the goddess of the mercy, he swear that he will be honored, that he will not make any guilty or lie about the scroll. That's why he swear the god of the sun and the god of the mercy, goddess of the mercy. Actually, it's both goddess though. Then it's also another thing is important, interesting is his talk about the time as well. So he in the beginning it's also said here it's October 10, the night of October 10. But he said Torah, the time of Torah, it's considered as the sacred moment in Japanese time. It's about the early morning, like 4 p.m., 3 p.m. at that time. So it was very, very late in the midnight. And he also mentioned that each 10 in the sky. And remember about the Niten ichiryu when I said that? So what's the 110? So of course the moon. So here when Musashi decided to swear to those gods, and also the moon was in the sky in early morning in Japan, early morning when he was on the top of the Mount Iwado. So you can actually kind of imagine that what kind of situation that he swear about his scroll. So it's very poetic. It's almost like a poem here. This is the end of the introduction of the Earth, the scroll of Earth, chapter 1, the prologue. Here Musashi kind of introduced himself and why he started writing this, what kind of situation he was, and he explained also what he's going to write on this scroll. Remember, the Gorin no Sho was written for everybody for the who applied the martial arts. So that's why he used the traditional not the kanji style, Chinese style. He used the traditional typical Japanese writing so that everybody can read. And the way he wrote this Gorin no Sho is not really talking about the secret of Niten ichiryu. He is talking about how you fight with the sword. So, and it applies many things. Of course, this was written for the martial artists at the time, the generation who doesn't know anything about the real battlefield. But also, the talking about psychological strategies or physics or like geological advantage. Anything could apply any other thing, any sports or any arts or anything, of course including in the war or battle or fighting, my martial arts. So that's why many people today still read the Gorin no Sho, because Musashi is designed to let everybody read about this. And this is why people today love this Gorin no Sho, and people still read this, because it's a fact. Like he said strongly mentioned about the reality of the nature, which doesn't change. So it means it doesn't change over the years. So that's why it applied about 400 years ago, still applied today. So that's why it's Gorin no Sho is very interesting. And so this is, next we'll be more talking about the detail. Chapter 2 will be the earth, the chi, and the earth of the scroll. I hope you enjoy, and you keep coming back for my next episode. And like I said, I make samurai movies, and I'm trying to understand more about what the Gorin no Sho is and what the Musashi experienced through the Sengoku samurai period, which is very important for me to make more reality and real samurai movies. I made my last latest samurai movie, The Ronin, is available already on Amazon. So, and I kind of used the main I let my main character use the Nitoryu, and that's very applied what I understand from Gorin no Sho. So if you have a chance to watch my movie, please check out my main character and how he fight, in the movie. That's kind of what I understand from my Musashi. So, see you in the next videos.
Please watch Toshi's samurai movie The Ronins. It's available on Amazon Prime Video. The main character uses Musashi's Niten Ichiru. There are so many sword fighting scenes. Also other samurai movie Aduchi, The Revenge of Samurai, is available, too.